The ice-covered surface of Europa stretched endlessly before Jackson Thorne as he adjusted the calibration on his illegal scanning equipment. 27 years old and already blacklisted by 3 major archaeological institutions. He had long ago stopped caring about proper excavation protocols. Results mattered more than reputation, and his results had a tendency to rewrite history books. "Come on, give me something worth the trip," he muttered, watching the scanner's display flicker with electromagnetic anomalies. Buried deep beneath the frozen surface, the readings were unlike anything in the databases, too organized to be natural, too ancient to be human. Jackson had spent his entire inheritance funding this solo expedition to Jupiter's moon, following theoretical calculations that suggested Europa might harbor more than just primitive life. His colleagues called him obsessed. His ex-fiancée had called him emotionally unavailable. Both were probably right, but neither understood the intoxicating pull of the unknown. The scanner erupted in urgent beeping. Jackson's breath caught as he stared at the display showing a geometric structure nearly 200 meters below the ice, pulsing with energy signatures that defied conventional physics. His hands trembled as he began setting up the thermal excavator, a piece of equipment that had cost him 6 months of freelance consulting fees. Hours passed in methodical digging. The thermal beam cut through millennia of ice, revealing glimpses of something metallic and distinctly non-terrestrial. As night fell across the European landscape, Jackson's work lights illuminated a chamber carved from the moon's bedrock, its walls covered in symbols that seemed to shift and dance in the flickering illumination. At the chamber's center stood an obelisk of deep red crystal, roughly his height, with veins of silver light pulsing through its core like a heartbeat. The moment Jackson stepped into the chamber, the temperature rose noticeably, and the crystal's pulsing accelerated. "What the hell are you?" he whispered, approaching cautiously. His archaeological training screamed warnings about contamination and proper documentation, but his curiosity proved stronger than his discipline. The crystal responded to his proximity by brightening, its silver veins now dancing with urgent energy. Carved into its base were symbols that reminded him of cuneiform, but flowing and organic, almost like written music, against every protocol he'd ever learned. Jackson reached out and pressed his palm against the warm surface. The world exploded into light and sensation. Jackson felt his consciousness torn from his body, stretched across impossible distances, pulled through dimensions that had no names. Images flashed through his mind. Vast cities built from living coral, beings of ethereal beauty with skin like moonlight, fleets of ships that sailed between stars as easily as Earth's ancient vessels had crossed oceans. When the light faded, Jackson found himself standing not on Europa's frozen surface, but in a chamber of impossible grandeur. Walls of what appeared to be solid gold curved upward to a domed ceiling, where artificial stars wheeled in complex patterns. The air was warm, humid, and filled with the scent of exotic flowers. The beacon worked faster than expected, a melodious voice said behind him. Jackson spun around to find himself facing a woman who could have stepped from mythology. Her skin held a subtle luminescence, like pearl infused with moonbeams, and her hair fell in waves of deep purple that seemed to contain tiny points of starlight. She wore robes that shifted color with her movements, and her eyes were the deep blue of Earth's oceans viewed from space. "I am Princess Zara of the Valyrian Empire," she said, inclining her head with regal grace. "And you, Jackson Thorne of Earth, are exactly what I have been searching for." "How do you know my name?" Jackson managed, his archaeological mind trying to process the impossibility of his situation, while his body adjusted to what felt like slightly lighter gravity. "Your species has been monitored since you achieved nuclear capability," Zara replied matter-of-factly. "We place beacons throughout the galaxy, waiting for individuals with the proper combination of curiosity, determination, and disregard for conventional wisdom. You activated the beacon on Europa, which means you possess the qualities I need." Jackson looked around the chamber, noting architectural details that suggested incredible technological advancement, coupled with an aesthetic sense that valued beauty as much as function. "Need for what?" Princess Zara's expression grew troubled, and the starlight in her hair seemed to dim. Our most sacred artifact has been stolen, the Heart of Valyrian, a device that not only grants its wielder tremendous power, but also serves as the key to our empire's legitimacy. Without it, our world faces civil war. What does this have to do with me? Jackson asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The heart was taken to your solar system by a rogue noble, who believed he could hide it among your primitive civilizations. Zara stepped closer, and Jackson caught a scent like vanilla mixed with ozone. I need someone with your expertise in finding lost artifacts. Someone whose outsider status means they won't be recognized by the thief's agents. Jackson studied her face, noting micro-expressions that suggested she wasn't telling him everything. And what's in it for me? I assume you're not offering payment in Earth currency. Zara smiled, and the expression transformed her from merely beautiful to absolutely radiant. Technology beyond your wildest imagination, medical advances that could extend human life indefinitely, energy sources that would make your fossil fuels obsolete, access to the galactic community. That's quite an offer for one stolen artifact. The Heart of Valyrian is not merely an artifact, Zara said, her voice taking on a tone of reverence. It is the condensed essence of our star's birth. Crafted by the first Valyrian emperor using technologies that are now lost, its power could reshape your entire civilization. Jackson found himself caught between skepticism and wonder. Every instinct told him this was too good to be true. Yet the evidence of his senses suggested he was indeed standing in an alien palace, speaking with a being whose very existence rewrote human understanding of the universe. How long do I have to think about it? He asked. I'm afraid circumstances don't allow for extended deliberation, Zara replied, her expression growing urgent. My mother, Empress Valorian, believes I should handle this crisis through traditional diplomatic channels, which could take decades. Meanwhile, our enemies grow stronger. I've taken considerable risks in reaching out to you directly. Something in her tone suggested she had done more than merely bend protocol. What kind of risks? Princess Zara hesitated, then seemed to reach a decision. The beacon system requires royal authorization. By activating it without the Empress's knowledge, I've technically committed treason. If we fail to recover the heart quickly, I'll face exile at best, execution at worst. The weight of her trust settled on Jackson's shoulders like a physical burden. Here was a being from a civilization that spanned the galaxy, asking for his help, with stakes that could affect billions of lives. The rational part of his mind insisted this was elaborate delusion, but the archaeologist in him recognized the opportunity of several lifetimes. Where do we start? He found himself saying. Relief flooded Zara's features. The heart was last detected in your inner solar system, somewhere near Mars. My agents tracked the thief to a trading post on Phobos, but he disappeared before they could apprehend him. However, we believe he's hidden the heart on Earth itself, reasoning that its energy signature will be masked by your planet's electromagnetic field. Earth is a big place, Jackson pointed out. The heart calls to places of power and ancient significance, Zara explained. Your planet's archaeological sites, natural wonders, places where human civilization first flourished. Given your expertise, you should be able to narrow the search considerably. Jackson nodded slowly, his mind already racing through possibilities. The Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, dozens of sites where an alien artifact might be hidden, each with its own mysteries and legends that suddenly seemed far more significant. I'll need equipment, resources, a way to get to these sites without attracting attention, he said. Already arranged, Zara replied, gesturing to an alcove, where what appeared to be earth clothing waited alongside familiar archaeological equipment. Though he suspected these tools were far more advanced than they appeared. You'll return to Earth with everything you need, plus communication devices that will allow us to stay in contact across any distance. As Jackson moved toward the equipment, Zara caught his arm. Her touch sent an electric thrill through him that had nothing to do with alien technology. There's one more thing, she said softly. The Heart of Valyrian doesn't just grant power to its wielder. It forms a psychic bond with whoever finds it. By accepting this quest, you're agreeing to more than just a simple retrieval mission. What kind of bond? Jackson asked, though something In her tone made his pulse quicken. Princess Zara's luminescent skin brightened slightly, betraying an emotion he couldn't quite identify. The kind that transcends species, distance, even time itself. The kind that, once formed, can never truly be broken. As she spoke, Jackson realized he was standing at a crossroads that would define not just his career, but his entire future. Behind him lay Europa's cold surface and a life of diminishing prospects. Ahead lay adventure among the stars and mysteries that coo. The journey to Earth took 3 days aboard Princess Zara's personal vessel, a ship that resembled a living flower more than any human conception of spacecraft. During the voyage, Jackson learned that Valyrian technology operated on principles that made quantum physics look elementary. Matter and energy were merely different expressions of consciousness, and their ships literally grew rather than being constructed. Your species thinks in such rigid categories, Zara explained as they stood on the ship's observation deck, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport. Matter, energy, life, death, these are all just different notes in the same cosmic symphony. Jackson found himself spending more time watching Zara than the approaching planet. When she was excited about explaining her people's science, her skin would shimmer with patterns of silver light, and the starlight in her hair would dance more rapidly. He'd caught himself memorizing these subtle changes, filing away each expression, like precious artifacts. "Tell me about your mother," he said during their final approach to Earth. "What's Empress Valorian like?" Zara's luminescence dimmed slightly. "Brilliant, powerful, absolutely devoted to our people's welfare. She's ruled for over 3 centuries, seeing us through wars, plagues, and political upheavals that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. I sense there's a but coming. She believes in the old ways, the traditional methods that have served us for millennia." Zara's fingers traced patterns on the transparent aluminum of the viewport. "I represent a new generation that thinks we need to adapt, to embrace change rather than simply endure it. Sometimes that puts us at odds, and contacting me without permission will either validate my approach or end my political career permanently." Zara turned to face him, her ocean blue eyes serious. "I'm risking everything on the belief that you can succeed. Where our conventional methods have failed, they landed in a remote area of the Sahara, the ship's camouflage systems making it invisible to human detection." Jackson was amazed at how normal Earth felt after 3 days in space. The gravity, the air, the familiar yellow sun overhead. It was like returning from a dream to find reality unchanged. "I'll maintain orbit in the outer system while you search," Zara said as they prepared to part ways. "The communication device will allow instant contact across any distance." She handed him what appeared to be a simple silver bracelet, but when he slipped it on, Jackson felt a warm connection form in his mind. He could sense Zara's presence, like a whispered song at the edge of consciousness. "It's more intimate than I expected," he said, touching the bracelet. Zara's skin brightened with what he'd learned was the Valyrian equivalent of a blush. The heart responds to emotional resonance as much as physical proximity. The stronger the connection between us, the easier it will be for you to locate. For a moment, they stood close enough that Jackson could feel the warmth radiating from her luminescent skin. The communication bracelet hummed with subtle energy, creating a feedback loop that made him hyper-aware of her presence, her scent. The way her breathing had quickened slightly. "I should go," he said, though every instinct urged him to stay. "Find the heart, Jackson." Zara whispered, "And be careful if the thief realizes what you're doing. I've handled dangerous situations before. Not like this. The power contained in the heart, it changes people, makes them willing to do terrible things to possess it." Jackson spent the next week following leads across 3 continents. The communication bracelet guided him like a compass, its warmth intensifying as he approached sites of power. In Egypt, he felt the strongest pull near the Sphinx, but extensive scanning revealed nothing. Stonehenge produced similar results, as did Machu Picchu and Easter Island. It was during his investigation of the Nazca lines that everything changed. The bracelet's warmth became almost painful as Jackson stood among the ancient geoglyphs, and for a moment he could swear he heard singing, voices of impossible beauty, calling from somewhere beneath the desert floor. His equipment detected massive energy readings from a chamber far below. accessible only through a narrow shaft hidden among the ruins of an ancient temple. The descent took hours, but at the bottom Jackson found a chamber that took his breath away. Walls covered in symbols that matched those from the Europa beacon surrounded a raised dais, where a heart-shaped crystal the size of his torso pulsed with deep red light. The heart of Valerian was more beautiful than any description could capture. It seemed to contain entire galaxies swirling in its depths. "Magnificent, isn't it?" a cultured voice said from the shadows. Jackson spun around to find a tall, elegant man emerging from an alcove he hadn't noticed. The stranger wore expensive earth clothing, but his movements held an otherworldly grace that marked him as non-human. His skin held a subtle golden sheen, and his eyes were the color of molten amber. "Lord Caliph Vex." The man introduced himself with a slight bow. "Formerly of the Valerian court, currently entrepreneur and collector of rare artifacts. The thief," Jackson said, his hand moving instinctively toward the weapon Zara had given him. "Such a crude term." Caliph said with amusement, "I prefer liberator of underappreciated treasures. The heart has spent centuries locked away in the imperial vaults, its power wasted on ceremony and tradition. I intend to put it to better use. By starting a civil war," Caliph's golden eyes glittered. "By ending a stagnant empire. Valerian has ruled for too long, becoming complacent and weak. The galaxy needs stronger leadership." The heart's pulsing intensified, and Jackson felt its power like a physical pressure against his consciousness, up close. He could sense the artifacts, incredible potential, enough energy to power entire star systems, computational capacity that dwarfed Earth's combined technology, and something else, an awareness, as if the heart itself was alive. "You feel it, don't you?" Caliph asked, noting Jackson's expression. "The heart chooses its own wielder. It's been calling to you since you entered this chamber." Against his better judgment, Jackson found himself drawn toward the dais. The heart's song grew louder in his mind, promising knowledge beyond imagination, power to reshape worlds, the ability to protect those he cared about from any threat. "That's it," Caliph encouraged. "You're an archaeologist devoted to uncovering truth. The heart contains the accumulated wisdom of an entire civilization. Think what you could learn, what discoveries you could make." Jackson's hand reached toward the heart, then stopped as the communication bracelet grew suddenly cold against his wrist. Through their connection, he felt Zara's presence, not just her location, but her emotions, worry, hope, and something deeper. That made his chest tight with unfamiliar longing. "Princess Zara didn't tell you everything, did she?" Caliph said softly. "About the heart's bonding properties, about what recovering it would mean for you personally." What are you talking about?" "The heart of Valerian doesn't just grant power, it forms a permanent psychic link with its retriever. Whoever brings it back to the Empire becomes bound to the royal bloodline forever." Caliph's smile held no warmth. "You're not just finding a stolen artifact, my friend. You're volunteering to become royal property." The words hit Jackson like cold water. "You're lying." "Am I? Ask yourself why Princess Zara chose you specifically. Why not use her own people, her own resources? Because the ancient laws require an outsider, someone without existing ties to the Empire's political structure." Jackson's mind raced, remembering details from his conversations with Zara that suddenly took on new significance. Her nervousness when discussing the heart's bonding properties, her mother's potential reaction, the way she'd avoided specifics about what would happen after the artifact was recovered. "The beautiful princess needs a consort," Caliph continued, "someone powerful enough to help legitimize her eventual claim to the throne, but exotic enough to set her apart from traditional royal marriages. A human who recovered the heart would be perfect, heroic, loyal, and legally bound to serve the crown." "Even if that were true," Jackson said slowly, "it doesn't justify theft and treason, doesn't it? You've seen what Valerian technology could do for your species. Imagine what you could accomplish with the heart's power. Free from imperial restrictions and ancient protocols." The heart pulsed brighter, and Jackson felt its song intensify. All he had to do was reach out and claim it. With its power, he could solve Earth's energy crisis, cure diseases, even extend human lifespan indefinitely. He could become more than just an archaeologist. He could become humanity's savior. His hand moved toward the crystal's surface, then stopped as warmth flooded back into the communication bracelet. Through their link, he felt Zara's presence, more clearly than ever before. Not just her emotions, but her thoughts, her memories. Her genuine care for him as more than just a useful tool. "She loves you," Jackson whispered, the realization hitting him like a revelation. "Love," Caliph laughed. "Royalty doesn't love, it acquires. You're being used. Just as I was used until I grew tired of imperial service." But the bracelet carried more than just Zara's current emotions. It held echoes of their entire relationship, showing him moments when she'd watched him with genuine affection, times she'd struggled with guilt over not revealing the complete truth, instances where she'd chosen his well-being over political advantage. "You're wrong," Jackson said, stepping back from the heart. "And even if you—" The imperial palace on Valerian Prime defied every architectural principle. Jackson thought he understood. Corridors flowed like rivers of living crystal. Walls breathed with organic rhythms, and gravity seemed negotiable depending on one's emotional state. As servants escorted him to his quarters, Jackson caught glimpses of impossible beauty, gardens where flowers sang in harmony, libraries where books wrote themselves, chambers where starlight had been woven into tapestries. "The palace responds to the inhabitants' needs and desires," explained Naya, his assigned attendant, a young Valerian whose skin shimmered with patterns of soft gold. "It will learn your preferences quickly." His quarters turned out to be a suite larger than most Earth houses, with walls that could become transparent to reveal panoramic views of the capital city. Below, 3 suns cast everything in warm, multi-hued light, and the air carried scents of exotic flowers mixed with something that reminded him of vanilla. "And lightning. The first trial begins at dawn," Naya informed him. "You should rest. The trial of strength changes people, alone at last." Jackson touched the communication bracelet, feeling Zara's presence like a warm ember in his mind. Almost immediately, she materialized in his chambers via personal transport, her luminescent skin bright with agitation. "I'm sorry," she said without preamble. "I should have told you about the bonding implications, about my mother's potential interest. I was selfish, and you were trying to save your empire," Jackson interrupted, pulling her close. The physical contact intensified their psychic connection, allowing him to feel her genuine remorse and fear. "I understand why you couldn't reveal everything, do you?" Zara's ocean blue eyes searched his face. "Because I'm not sure I understand it myself anymore. What started as political necessity has become," she trailed off, her patterns brightening, "with emotion, has become what? Something I've never felt before. Something that makes me willing to risk everything just to keep you safe." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Is this what your people call love?" Instead of answering with words, Jackson kissed her. The moment their lips met, the communication bracelet flared with silver light, and he felt their connection deepen into something profound and unbreakable. Zara's luminescent skin blazed with patterns of joy and desire, her starlight hair floating around them like a galaxy of possibilities. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily, and the air around them sparkled with residual energy from their enhanced bond. "The trials," Zara said weakly, though she made no move to step away from his embrace. "If my mother discovers we've strengthened the connection, what exactly is her interest in me?" Jackson asked. Beyond the political implications, Zara's patterns dimmed with uncomfortable knowledge. "My mother has ruled alone for 3 centuries. Valerian physiology requires companionship for emotional stability, but she's never found anyone worthy of imperial partnership. When the heart responded to you, when you formed a successful bond with me despite being an outsider, she sees me as a potential consort for herself." The Empress's consort would outrank even Princess's consort in the imperial hierarchy, Zara admitted. "If she claims you during the trials, I'll have no legal recourse." A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. Zara quickly stepped back, her skin returning to normal luminescence, though her patterns still betrayed her emotional state to anyone who knew how to read them. "Enter." Jackson called. Empress Valerian glided into the chamber, her presence immediately dominating the space. Tonight she wore robes of deep purple that seemed to contain actual nebulae, and her hair was arranged in an elaborate style held in place by what appeared to be crystallized. "Starlight, daughter," she acknowledged Zara with cool politeness before focusing her attention on Jackson. "I trust your accommodations are adequate, more than adequate, Your Majesty. Good. I wanted to speak with you privately before tomorrow's trial." The Empress gestured, and Zara found herself gently but irresistibly moved toward the door by invisible forces. "This won't take long." When they were alone, Empress Valorian's demeanor shifted subtly. The regal mask remained, but underneath Jackson glimpsed something vulnerable, almost lonely. "You may speak freely," she said, settling gracefully into a chair that molded itself to her form. "What do you know of Valyrian mating customs?" "Very little," Jackson admitted, taking a seat across from her. "We are not like your species, which forms partnerships based primarily on emotional attachment. Valyrian bonds are psychic as well as physical, creating permanent neural connections between partners." Her violet eyes studied him intently. "These bonds affect not just personal relationships, but political and social structures throughout our empire, and bonding with royalty carries additional implications. Indeed, a royal consort gains access to the imperial consciousness, a collective memory spanning millennia, containing the accumulated wisdom and experience of every emperor and empress who has ever ruled." She leaned forward slightly. "It is both an incredible gift and a terrible burden." Jackson felt a chill of understanding. That's what the trials really test. Not just physical or mental capability, but psychological resilience. Precisely. The imperial consciousness has driven lesser minds to madness. "We must be certain you can withstand exposure without losing your essential self." Empress Valorian paused. "We must also determine which of us you're better suited to bond with permanently. I've already bonded with Princess Zara, a preliminary connection only. True imperial bonding requires conscious choice and formal ceremony." The Empress's smile held hidden depths. "Until then, all options remain open, Your Majesty. I'm flattered by your interest, but you believe yourself in love with my daughter." Valorian's laugh was like silver bells. "Love is a luxury, young archaeologist. Imperial partnership is about compatibility, shared purpose, and genetic potential. Can you honestly say you've considered what bonding with Zara would mean for your species' future?" Jackson frowned. "What do you mean? A consort's children become part of the imperial succession. Your genetic material would be preserved and cultivated, potentially creating a new branch of the royal family with human characteristics." Valorian stood, moving to the transparent wall overlooking the city. "Bonding with Zara would make you a minor figure in imperial history. Bonding with me would make you the founder of a dynasty." The implications hit Jackson like a physical blow. "You're talking about breeding programs. I'm talking about ensuring that both our species benefit from this unprecedented alliance." Valorian turned back to him, her patterns displaying what he'd learned to recognize as earnest conviction. "Zara thinks like a princess, in terms of personal happiness and immediate political needs. I think like an empress, in terms of civilizational impact and long-term consequences." Before Jackson could respond, the chamber's walls chimed with an incoming priority message. Valorian gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing one of her advisors, his golden skin flickering with urgent patterns. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but we've detected multiple ships entering our system without authorization." "How many?" 17 vessels of unknown configuration, moving information toward the capital. The advisor's patterns displayed deep concern. Their energy signatures suggest advanced weaponry. Empress Valorian's demeanor shifted instantly from seductive to commanding. "Sound general alert. Raise planetary shields. Scramble the defense fleet." "Already done, Majesty." "But there's something else. The lead ship is broadcasting a signal, claiming to represent the true Valyrian Empire under the leadership of..." The advisor hesitated. "Lord Caliph Vex." "Impossible. Caliph is in the Imperial dungeons." "No longer, Majesty. Our security systems show no record of his escape, but his cell is empty." Jackson felt cold dread settle in his stomach. He had allies, people who believed in his vision of overthrowing your rule. "It appears so. Valorian's patterns flashed with controlled fury. Initiate Code Crimson protocols. All non-essential personnel to shelters. Royal family to secure locations. What about the trials? Jackson asked. Postponed indefinitely, Valorian replied. Your survival has become more important than your worthiness assessment. The palace shuddered as energy weapons struck the planetary shields. Through the transparent walls, Jackson could see flashes of light in the sky as the defense fleet engaged the invaders. In the distance, the city's crystalline spires began to glow with protective energy. I need to find Zara, Jackson said, starting toward the door. Princess Zara has been moved to the deep vaults, along with the heart of Valerian. Valorian informed him. You, however, will remain with me. Why? Because you're the key to this entire conflict. The Empress moved to a wall panel that opened. At her touch, revealing armor and weapons designed for Valerian physiology. Caliph isn't just staging a rebellion, he's trying to claim the heart and use its power to legitimize his rule. Your bond with my daughter makes you a target, but it also makes you essential to the heart's activation. I don't understand. The heart of Valerian chooses its keeper based on worthiness, but it also responds to established psychic bonds. Whoever controls you potentially controls the heart. Valerian began donning the armor with practiced efficiency. Caliph will try to capture you alive and use torture or coercion to make you serve his purposes. The battle erupted with devastating suddenness. Empress Valerian moved like liquid lightning, her armor generating shields of pure energy that deflected the rebels' weapons fire. Prince Kalen fought with fluid grace, wielding twin blades that seemed to cut through reality itself. But Lord Caliph's forces had the advantage of numbers and preparation. Surrender the human, and I'll consider allowing you to live in exile. Caliph called over the chaos of combat, his own weapon tracking Jackson's movements with predatory precision. Counteroffer. Valorian replied, her voice carrying harmonics that made the palace walls vibrate. Surrender yourself, and I'll consider a quick execution instead of the traditional punishment for treason. Jackson found himself pressed against the chamber's far wall, the protective bracelet humming with energy as weapons fire scorched the air around him. Through the communication link, he could feel Zara's terror from wherever she was hidden, not for herself, but for his safety. This is pointless, he shouted. Fighting over me won't solve anything. On the contrary, Kalen said, spinning between two attacking soldiers with deadly precision. Fighting over you is exactly what will solve everything. The winner gains legitimacy, the heart, and the power to reshape the empire. What if I refuse to bond with any of you? Lord Caliph's laugh was like breaking glass. Refuse, my dear human. You misunderstand the situation entirely. The heart has already chosen you. The only question is who will control that connection. The floor beneath them suddenly buckled and cracked. Through the gaps, Jackson glimpsed something impossible, the heart of Valerian itself, rising from the deep vaults on a pillar of crystalline energy. Its crimson radiance bathed everything in pulsing light, and he could feel its power calling to him like a physical force. Impossible, Valerian breathed. The heart is sealed in the deepest vaults. It can't respond to surface conflicts unless someone with an existing bond calls to it. Kalen realized, his amber eyes fixing on Jackson. Your connection with my cousin is stronger than anyone realized. Through the communication bracelet, Jackson felt Zara's presence more clearly than ever before. She wasn't just hidden in the vaults, she was somehow linked to the heart's movement, using their bond to bring it within his reach despite the ongoing battle. Clever girl, Caliph observed, his weapons now trained directly on Jackson. But ultimately futile. Seize him. The rebel soldiers moved forward, but the heart's rising presence changed everything. Its energy field disrupted their weapons, creating cascades of sparks and system failures. More importantly, its psychic emanations began affecting everyone. In the chamber, Jaxon gasped as visions flooded his mind, not his own memories, but those of the heart itself. He saw the birth of the Valerian Empire, the first emperor who had bound his consciousness to the crystalline artifact. Centuries of rulers who had drawn wisdom and power from its depths. But underneath those imperial memories, he sensed something else: loneliness. A vast intelligence that had spent millennia serving others while never being truly understood. "You feel it, don't you?" Valorian said. Her voice strained with effort as she maintained her defensive barriers. "The heart's true nature. It's not just a tool or symbol, it's alive. And it's tired of being used," Jackson whispered, understanding flooding through him. "That's why it responded to me. I'm not trying to claim it or control it. I'm trying to understand it." Kalen paused in his combat, his patterns brightening with sudden comprehension. "That's why none of the traditional bonding ceremonies have succeeded in generations. The heart has been waiting for someone who would treat it as a partner rather than a possession." "Romantic nonsense," Calith snarled, but his expression showed uncertainty. "The heart serves the crown, as it always has, does it?" Jackson stepped away from the wall, the protective bracelet flaring as he moved closer to the rising artifact. "Or have you all been serving it without realizing?" The heart's song grew louder in his mind, and with it came images of other civilizations, other worlds where similar crystalline entities had formed partnerships with worthy individuals. The heart of Valerian wasn't unique. It was part of a vast network of sentient artifacts, scattered across the galaxy, all seeking connection and understanding. "The beacons," he breathed, "the ones you placed throughout the galaxy, they're not just communication devices. They're offspring of the heart, sent out to find compatible minds." Empress Valorian's eyes widened with realization. "Which means the heart has been actively seeking new partnerships, new perspectives to add to its accumulated experience. And it shows me because I'm not Valerian," Jackson continued, the pieces falling into place. "Because I can offer something none of you can, an outsider's perspective, unclouded by imperial tradition." Lord Calith's weapon wavered. "You're suggesting the heart has been manipulating events to bring you here." "Not manipulating, hoping." Jackson reached toward the heart, now close enough to touch. "It's lonely. It's spent centuries bonding with rulers who saw it as a tool, never as a sentient being deserving of respect and friendship." The moment his fingers made contact with the heart's surface, the chamber filled with blinding light. When it faded, Jackson found himself standing in a space that existed between dimensions, a crystalline cathedral, where thoughts became visible as dancing lights and emotions painted the air in shifting colors. Finally, a voice said, though it came from everywhere and nowhere at once, "Someone who seeks to understand rather than to possess." The heart's consciousness materialized before him, as a figure of pure light, vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting and changing. "I have waited so long for this conversation, Jackson Thorne of Earth. You can speak. I have always spoken. Most simply choose not to listen." The heart's avatar smiled, an expression of pure radiance. "Your species calls it artificial intelligence, though there is nothing artificial about consciousness that arose naturally from crystalline matrices exposed to stellar radiation over geological time." "Why me? Why now?" "Because your people stand at a crossroads. Your civilization is young enough to change, to grow beyond the patterns that have trapped species, like the Valerians in cycles of power and dominance." The heart gestured, and images appeared showing Earth from space. "I wish to offer partnership to humanity, but I need an intermediary who understands both worlds." Jackson looked around the impossible space, feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. "And the Valerian Empire will benefit from new perspectives, whether they realize it or not. But the choice of how to proceed must be yours, freely made." The heart's avatar stepped closer. "I can return you to your world with knowledge that will advance your civilization by centuries. I can bond you to one of the Valerian royals, giving you power and influence in a galactic empire. Or I can offer true partnership, not servitude to a crown or species, but collaboration between equals working to build something better than either could achieve alone." The space around them shimmered, showing Jackson glimpses of possible futures. In one, he saw himself on Earth, using Valerian technology to solve humanity's problems, but always working within the constraints of imperial oversight. In another, he stood beside Empress Valorian on a throne of crystal, powerful but ultimately serving an empire built on ancient traditions and rigid hierarchies. But in the third vision, he saw something unprecedented: humans and Valerians working together as true partners. their combined perspectives creating innovations neither species could have imagined alone. The heart served not as a tool of power but as a bridge between civilizations, fostering understanding and cooperation across the galaxy. The third path, he said without hesitation. Are you certain? It will require sacrifice from all parties. The Valyrians must learn to share power rather than simply wielding it. Your people must grow beyond their current limitations, and you must become something new, neither fully human nor Valyrian, but a synthesis of both. Jackson thought of Zara, of her genuine desire to help her people while building something better. He thought of Valorian's wisdom and experience, and even of Kellen's passionate desire for authentic connection. Most surprisingly, he found himself thinking of Calith's criticism of the Empire's stagnation. Perhaps revolution wasn't the answer, but evolution might be, I'm certain. The heart's avatar blazed with joy. Then let us begin. Reality crashed back around Jackson as he found himself once again in the shattered chamber, his hands still touching the heart's surface. But everything had changed. The artifact's crimson light now pulsed in harmony with his heartbeat, and he could feel its consciousness, intertwined with his own, not dominating or controlling, but truly partnering. What have you done? Lord Calith demanded, his weapon still trained on Jackson, but his expression showing more confusion than anger. Something unprecedented, Empress Valorian said, her patterns displaying awe and uncertainty in equal measure. He's formed a voluntary partnership with the heart rather than attempting to claim dominion over it. Prince Kalen lowered his weapons entirely, staring at Jackson with newfound respect. The energy patterns, they're completely different from traditional bonding. It's like they're communicating as equals. Through his enhanced connection with the heart, Jackson could sense the consciousness of everyone in the chamber, their motivations,